Come on in, everybody. It's time for the Southern Route. So, what's the Southern Route all about? Well, it's about Southern stuff. Southern people, Southern music, Southern food, Southern nights, Southern traditions, nostalgia, and so much more. Hey there, friends. Welcome back to the Southern Route. I'm your host, Shannon Courier. We are here on TNCRadio.LIVE. Can I just say how excited I am to be back with you all each week and how much I always appreciate you all listening in and supporting this show and supporting TNCRadio.LIVE. It means so much to me and to the TNC Radio team. In case you missed a show and you want to catch up, you can find all of our shows on TNCRadio.LIVE on the website or on our app. Or you can hop over to your favorite podcast platform and search for the Southern Route. We are on Spotify, Google, Amazon Music, TuneIn, Listen Notes, Pocket Cast, Podchaser, Deezer, and Stitcher. I don't think I left anybody out of that list. I didn't want to forget anybody because everybody has their own favorite podcast platform, and we are everywhere that you are. So go find us on one of your favorite podcast platforms and catch up on a show that you might have missed. So this week is going to be a little bit different. I did not have a guest that was available to join me this week. And what do you do when that happens? You try to get creative. So I hope you all will indulge me tonight as I share some thoughts and maybe some information, whatever kind of pops into my head tonight that I think would be somewhat interesting to share with you. The first thing I want to share is actually a recipe. So I was recently talking with some drivers that I know, and we got to talking about quote unquote Southern food. One of those things we talked about was barbecue. We've talked about fried green tomatoes. We've talked about homemade ice cream. We've talked about lots of things. And one of these guys is not from the South. So there were several things that he had not tried before. And one of those things was actually Duke's mayonnaise. And I'm not sharing a recipe for Duke's mayonnaise, but this leads into where I'm going. So me and the other driver, we went on and on about how, this driver, Ed, had to try Duke's and let us know what he thinks. And I can't believe he had never tried it before. But none of the stores around him sell Duke's. So the other driver, Robert, he said, I can take care of that. So he hops over to Amazon while we're talking and places an order for Duke's mayonnaise and ships it out to Ed. So we did hear back from Ed. He loves Duke's mayonnaise, and we're probably going to have to send him another shipment so we can keep him stocked since he can't find it around his location out there in Oklahoma. But if you haven't tried it, it's the best mayonnaise. And if you don't have it in a store near you, you too can hop on Amazon and place your order. That conversation led into another conversation about homemade biscuits and gravy. So breakfast is one of my favorite meals. I don't always eat it early in the morning. I actually like it mid-morning or even sometimes for dinner. But one of my favorite types of gravy is chocolate gravy. So if you haven't had chocolate gravy before, let me just tell you, you're totally missing out. Okay. So my grandmother, I call her Granny. We're from the South. And so she was my granny. It's my dad's mom. She made homemade chocolate gravy. And of course, everything was homemade, it seemed, in Granny's house. The biscuits, the gravy, she canned, she gardened. She did a lot of her cooking and growing by hand. They had a farm outside the city, and we used to go out there and hang out at the farm. And so everything was, locally grown, hand grown, homemade. And so I was talking about this chocolate gravy, and this driver, Ed, he wanted the recipe and asked if I would be willing to share it with him. And, some recipes are family secrets, and you can't share those. One of those recipes is actually my husband's mom's peanut butter icing recipe. It's homemade also and super fantastic. And that's what he always wants for his birthday. And that is the secret family recipe that I'm not allowed to share. However, I wanted to actually share my granny's chocolate gravy recipe because if you have not tried it, you just have to try it. Okay. So I'm going to share that. I get asked for it a lot. I get asked, will you make that for me sometime? And I'm always happy to if the situation arises. So I'm going to tell you how to make chocolate gravy at your house. So first, let me tell you the ingredients that you're going to need. So there's only 5 things in this gravy. The first thing you need is flour. The second thing you need is cocoa, the unsweetened powder cocoa that's in the can. Now, mine comes in a brown can. I think I buy the Hershey's brand, but there are other brands of that. It's the unsweetened powder that you have to scoop out. So, flour and cocoa. Then you're going to need sugar, and you're going to need milk, and you're going to need unsalted stick butter. Those are the 5 things that you're going to need. So, here we go. Get out your pot, and in your pot, you're going to put in the dry ingredients. You're going to add 1/2 cup of flour. You're going to add 2 tablespoons of cocoa. You're going to add 1/2 cup of sugar. So those are your 3 dry ingredients. You're going to mix those together until they're pretty well blended in there. Then you're going to stir in 2 cups of milk. Okay, so when you stir in the 2 cups of milk, it's going to seem like it's not blending very well. And it's not because the milk is cold. Okay, so just stir it up a little bit, kind of get it mixed in there a little bit. You're going to see some clumps in there, and that's okay. Those are all going to be washed out, melted out through the cooking process. So all right, so you've got everything in there, and now you're going to turn your stove eye on medium, okay? Now, only put it on medium. Don't put it any higher than that. So it's going to take a little bit to get warmed up. You can put it on medium high for like the first minute or so to get it kind of warm, but then turn it back to medium. This is not a fast cooking gravy, and it takes a bit. Okay, so you're going to see it start to blend, but you don't want to cook it too fast because it's going to burn really easily. Okay, so you pretty much have to stir it nonstop. Now, this is going to take about 15 minutes or more before you start to see it thicken up. So make sure you plan ahead. You're going to need 15 to 20 minutes to get this cooked at the same time that everything else for your breakfast is ready to go. So don't think this is a quick gravy mix. It's not. So you're going to need about 15 to 20 minutes. So you've got it on the eye. The eye is warming up. You're stirring it. It's been 15 minutes or so, and you'll see it start to thicken up. Now, what consistency do you want it? I typically make mine about the same consistency as regular sausage gravy. Now, I like my gravy just a little bit thick, not runny like water, but not thick like paste either. So somewhere in the middle. So you're just going to keep stirring this stuff in the pot until it gets to a consistency that you like, okay? So once it gets to that consistency where you think, okay, that's a consistency that I would pour over biscuits, that's when you take it off the heat. Okay, after you take it off the heat, you're going to stir in 2 tablespoons of butter. That's after it's already cooked. You're going to stir in those 2 tablespoons of butter, stir it up really good, and then your chocolate gravy is ready to eat. So it's served hot, of course. You don't want it to get cold necessarily. Not that it tastes bad cold either, but gravy is supposed to be hot. So it's served hot, and it's best served over hot buttered biscuits. So you want your biscuits to be done about the same time. Now, I can't say I make homemade biscuits. I've never been great at that. I usually buy the Grand's biscuits. I like the great big fluffy ones, or the Walmart brand of the Grand's biscuits. I buy the Walmart brand because they're cheaper. But okay, so let me just tell you how good this is. It is so yummy, and it is like having dessert at breakfast time. That's why I can't eat it typically too early in the morning, because it's pretty sweet. Now, if you don't like it really sweet, you can add just a touch, I mean, just a little splash of vanilla, and you can stir that in there, and that will take a little bit of the sweetness away. I do not personally do that because I like all the sweet. Okay. So mine is ready to go. I'm putting it over hot buttered biscuits. Okay. Let me just tell you that it's also good on scrambled eggs. It's also good to dip your bacon in, and it's also good to dip your sausage in. It's a salty and sweet combination. So really, it's good on everything. I haven't found anything that's not good on, and you could just eat it out of the bowl if you wanted to. But making homemade biscuits and chocolate gravy is one of my favorite memories growing up at my granny's house in Decatur, Alabama, with my cousin Jenny. She always ate hers right out of the bowl. She didn't like it on biscuits. She didn't really like it on anything except eggs, but she just put hers in a bowl and ate it with a spoon. So that is one of my favorite memories, and one of my favorite recipes and favorite breakfast foods. And we only have it about twice a year, and that's when the whole family comes out to the lake and we all get together, and I get the privilege of making chocolate gravy for everybody because I'm the only one that knows how to make it anymore. So I'm passing down that family tradition. So what's one of your favorite memories growing up? I know we all have things that take us back and make us feel all warm and cozy, and that one's mine. I'm sure you have one as well. We're going to take a quick break so you can think about that. Think about something that makes you smile. Think about something that makes you feel warm, and something that makes you happy. We're going to be right back on the Southern Route here on TNCRadio.live.
For the latest in traffic, weather, and information, catch the Morning Grind weekdays right here on TNCRadio.live.
Ride the Southern Route with Shannon Currier Tuesdays at 7, 6 Central on TNCRadio.live.
Hello, everybody. This is Todd Dewey from Ice Road Truckers on the History Channel, and I love to listen to TNCRadio.live.
Hi, I'm Hope Savara. Join us every Monday on TNC Radio Live at 7 p.m. Eastern. It's Building Strong Minds.
Hey guys, we're back on the Southern Route here on TNCRadio.live, and this is a different show than what I normally do. As I stated in the first segment, we did not have a guest that was available for today. So I'm just spending today hoping you will indulge me as I just talk about some things that have come up in recent conversation with friends and colleagues, and things that have kind of had me thinking and remembering and just pondering how I feel about some things. In the last segment, I shared something fun. I shared my granny's homemade chocolate gravy recipe. I hope you will give it a try and let me know what you think. I hope you think that it is as good as I think it is. It's absolutely fabulous, and it's a great way to start the day, although it's fattening. And we only do it a couple of times a year here when we go out to the lake and spend the weekend with family. But it's a great memory. And I hope you were able to spend this break thinking about something that made you smile, thinking about something that was a great memory for you with maybe a parent or a grandparent or a sibling, or I don't know, maybe a cousin, or even a friend that you might have had that maybe you haven't connected with in a while. And so maybe this is a good reminder to connect with somebody that you haven't talked to in a while, just to call and say hello and rebuild a friendship. So, it's funny how conversations flow from one thing to the next, and you start in one place and you end up somewhere totally different. It's like a rabbit hole, and you look back an hour later and you think, how did we end up on this topic? But I was recently talking to a friend about poetry, and I don't know if you enjoy poetry. I can't say that I enjoy all poetry, but for as long as I can remember, my favorite poem has been The Road Not Taken by Robert Frost. I don't know if you've ever heard it, if you've ever read it. I just think it can mean so many things, and I have been thinking on that, and I used to have it memorized when I was in school because I liked it that much, and I realized that I had forgotten how the poem went, and so I went back to read it again and went back to look up some more information on Robert Frost because, gosh, guys, I've been out of school for a lot of years, and so I haven't really spent a whole lot of time researching and thinking about things like this. But I was kind of in a pondering mood in the last week or so, and I went back to read The Road Not Taken, and I wanted to share it with you in case you haven't ever heard it before. I'll give you a quick rundown on Robert Frost. I don't know why it is. It seems like poetry and poets from, back in the 1800s and 1900s, they all seem to have such sad stories. Maybe that's where their poetry came from. But he spent several years over in England. He spent a lot of time in Vermont, of course, and he just had a lot of things happen to him throughout his life. He had a life that was really plagued by grief and loss. He was 11 when his father died of tuberculosis. I think I read that his family had literally $8 to their name when his father died. That was in 1885. And then in 1990, his mom passed away from cancer. In 1920, he had to commit his younger sister, Jeannie, to a mental hospital, and she passed away 9 years later. And so mental illness apparently ran through this family, and Robert Frost and his mom both suffered from depression. And then his daughter, Irma, was later committed to a mental hospital in 1947. And even his wife, Eleanor, experienced bouts of depression. So there seemed to be a lot of mental illness and depression that ran through his family that maybe was passed down from generation to generation. Robert Frost and his wife had 6 children, and his wife had heart problems all throughout their life. She had breast cancer in 1937. She died of heart failure in 1938. There's just so much loss. And so I'm sure there's a lot that goes into all of the poetry that somebody like Robert Frost writes. And so this particular poem, it's called The Road Not Taken. It's one of his most popular works, but they say it's a lot of times often misunderstood. When you're in school, they have you read a poem and they'll tell you to discern what you think this poem means. And you're supposed to, what do you get from the poem? And that's the good thing about poetry. A lot of times it's how you read it, and maybe how you're feeling and what you're going through at the time when you read it. But Robert Frost was actually really good friends with another writer named Edward Thomas, and they became really close friends, and they used to go on long walks together all the time. And so one day they were out walking together, and they came across these 2 roads while they were out walking. And his friend Edward Thomas was indecisive about, which road they should take. And looking back after the walk was over, he was like, well, maybe we should have taken the other road. And so out of that conversation and that experience, Robert Frost wrote this poem, The Road Not Taken. And his friend took that poem so seriously, but it really was not meant to be a serious poem from Robert Frost. He really was just kind of, giving his friend a little jab, who was because he was indecisive about a lot of things. And he would always look back and say, maybe I didn't make the right decision. Maybe I should have made another decision. And don't we do that too often? We make a decision and then we look back and we say hindsight, or, oh, I wonder what would have happened if I had made that decision. And don't we wish we could we could go back and maybe make another decision, make a different decision at some point in our lives. But, you know, fortunately, that can't happen. Fortunately and unfortunately, to be honest with you, odds are that it wouldn't have turned out any better if we had made the other decision. So I don't know if you've ever heard this poem. It's called "The Road Not Taken," and I just wanted to read it. Just kind of been in a pondering mood lately. And I thought maybe it would make you think about a decision that you've made in your life and how we live with those decisions and hopefully not live with regret, even though we might would have taken a different road if we had to do it over again. Let's not live with regret for the decisions that we've made. Let's take the decisions that we make and move forward with it. So here is A Road Not Taken, or The Road Not Taken, by Robert Frost. Two roads diverged in a yellow wood, and sorry I could not travel both, and be one traveler. Long I stood, and looked down one as far as I could, to where it bent in the undergrowth. Then took the other as just as fair, and having perhaps the better claim, because it was grassy and wanted wear. Though as for that, the passing there had worn them really about the same. And both that morning equally lay in leaves no step had trodden black. Oh, I kept the first for another day. Yet knowing how way leads on to way, I doubted if I should ever come back. I shall be telling this with a sigh, somewhere ages and ages hence. Two roads diverged in a wood, and I took the road less traveled by, and that has made all the difference. We'll be right back on TNCRadio.LIVE here on the Southern Route.
TNCRadio.LIVE, your commercial driver navigation station.
Hi, I'm Dr. Christopher Cortman, and now for the Mental Health Minute. Can we talk about panic attacks? And when I say we, I mean me. I'm going to do all the talking. What is a panic attack? Well, to me, it's a misnomer. Panic does not attack you. A mugger attacks you. Your auntie's chihuahua attacks you. Panic doesn't attack you. Let's begin with what panic really is and where it comes from. Panic is an exaggeration of the body's own stress response. It's preparing you to run or to fight. But what happens is we get a surge of different kinds of hormones in our body, and as a result, the blood flows to the major muscle groups, and the heart starts racing, and the chest gets all constricted, and some people talk about an elephant sitting on their chest. And then there's blood flow to the arms and legs, and there's tingling sometimes, and that's called paresthesia. And some people report that there's an intensification of light and of sound. And all those things happen, and they're scary because it feels like I'm having a heart attack, or like I'm going crazy, or that I'm going to die. And by thinking those thoughts, I make it that much worse. It's pouring gasoline on a fire. So how do we cause these things? I'll share that in the next Mental Health Minute.
Welcome back to the Southern Route on TNCRadio.LIVE. I am your host, Shannon Currier, and this is a different show than I am used to doing. We did not have a guest available this week, so I'm just talking about some things that have been on my mind the last week or two and that I thought might be of some kind of interest to share with you all. I have mentioned before that I grew up in Montgomery, Alabama, and I now live right outside Montgomery in a little town called Wetumpka. And this little town was literally farmland when I was growing up. There was not a whole lot out here, and it has changed a whole lot since I have been gone. We were gone from here for gosh, 25 years probably. And we moved back here about 8 years ago, and Wetumpka was where we chose to move to. It's a small town. It's very cozy and it's very friendly. And we actually live about 12 miles outside of town. We live kind of out on the country roads where you're going to drive by cotton fields and a Christmas tree farm and horses and other animals on their way to our house before you pull into our neighborhood. It's just a sweet small town, and we have loved being a part of this community, and our kids have loved being a part of the schools here. And I didn't know if you knew a whole lot about Wetumpka, so I wanted to share a little bit about something that happened to us that was pretty exciting a year or so ago. We had I don't know if you watch HGTV, but HGTV has a show called Hometown Makeover. And the hosts of that show are Ben and Erin Napier. And they wanted to find a new little small town to give a makeover to. And so they put out the word where your town could submit a video and a reason why your small town should be chosen out of all the other small towns across this whole country, of why they should come in and redo your small town. And of course, Wetumpka put in a nomination for that, and our city council and our government did a great job putting together such a fun video that represented our little town. And out of the thousands and thousands and thousands of small towns that were submitted, Wetumpka was chosen to have this hometown makeover from HGTV. So Ben and Erin came in and looked through our town, met some people, decided on some places that they thought would be good to renovate and kind of revitalize our town. You know, our town used to be this hustle and bustle, and there was a lot of commerce that went on here. A lot of things were happening in Wetumpka, but as time goes by and small towns kind of get put to the wayside because there are roads and highways and interstates put in that bypass small towns, we start to see small towns kind of start to diminish. And that's what had happened to Wetumpka. There were great small businesses here, and everybody here loves to support our small businesses and our local businesses. But there were some things that needed to be done just to revitalize our town and revitalize our downtown. And that's what Ben and Erin came here to do. And so one of the things that Wetumpka is known for is there is a house here, and there was filming here for a movie, and that movie was called Big Fish. I don't know if you've ever heard of the movie Big Fish, but it was filmed here in Wetumpka and in some of the small little surrounding towns right around Wetumpka. And Big Fish was directed by Tim Burton. It was based on the 1998 novel by the same name, Big Fish. The film, it had Ewan McGregor in it, Albert Feeney, Helena Bonham Carter, Danny DeVito. There were others as well. Those are the ones that are coming to mind off the top of my head. Steve Buscemi. And so the film, it tells a story of a son who's frustrated with his father. His father is dying, and his father's kind of always been one of those tall tale kind of people, and he's never been able to tell if what his father was saying was true, if it was fact, or if it was fiction. And so he's kind of frustrated as his father is dying, coming to the end of his life. And if you haven't seen the movie, honestly, I don't even remember a whole lot about the movie. It's been so very long since I've seen it. But it was filmed here, and it's kind of one of our claim to fame for our small town. And so Burton came, and Tim Burton came here and started filming here and taking some photography in January 13th of 2003. So it's been a while. It's an older movie. But apart from 1 week, this entire movie was shot in Alabama, mostly in Wetumpka and into Montgomery. A little bit over in a side town called Tallahassee, and one of our colleges here in Montgomery, Huntington College. So we have this house where the film was set. It's called the Big Fish House, obviously, because it's the Big Fish movie. But there are also scenes that that were done. There was a whole set created in this little next town that's may as well be connected to Wetumpka, but it's called Millbrook. They had a movie set that was made there, and it was called the town of Spectre. You'll see that in the movie. But the town is still there. All the buildings are still there. The sign is still there that says the town of Spectre, and it's a great place to go get pictures made because they're really old, rundown buildings. Most of them you can't walk in because the floors are falling apart, but the outside of the structures are still there, and they make beautiful pictures. My oldest son actually had his senior pictures taken there, and they make some really cool backdrops, and they actually have goats that actually live there on that piece of the property, and you can go in and you can feed the goats and hang out with the goats and talk to the goats. And so it's a fun little location to go to. So HGTV came in, and they were going to redo this Big Fish house. And so there's a family living there that had moved here just probably a couple of years before that. And she was an art teacher at the elementary school, and she had art classes right across the street from the house called the Big Fish Art Studio. And so Ben and Aaron came in from HGTV and redid their house. And what they did was they took their living room and they put it back to exactly what it looked like when it was in the movie. But you have to think the movie was set, back a long time ago. So it was so interesting to see this old antebellum white, beautiful home. And then you go inside and it's set back to what you see in the movie. It was so very interesting to see what they chose to do with that. They also came in. There are people that stop by that Big Fish house, by the way, literally every day, every week. We have people that come and visit. Hundreds of thousands of people have come through to visit Wetumpka since we've been on HGTV. And I'll tell you, if you're looking for a small town to visit, Wetumpka is it. We also have a great new farmers market that came out of this show. We had one, but this really has a new permanent location, and it's got fresh flowers and produce and handmade goods, from the local farmers, local ice cream, local milk, local merchants. You can sit out there and have a picnic by the Coosa River, play cornhole with your family. They have pop-up events out there that support the arts and the local schools. You can also have dinner right down there on the Coosa River at Coach's Corner. That is a restaurant here in Wetumpka that got a little uplift and makeover as well. That restaurant used to be owned actually by my junior high school coach. He's retired now. It's been sold to another family, but that is one of our all-time favorites. You can sit on the glassed-in porch and overlook the Coosa River. And I'm just telling you, at night when the sun is setting, it is so absolutely beautiful. And Wetumpka is just full of little vistas and trails and parks, all kinds of recreational sites. We have a gorgeous bridge that crosses the Coosa River that is in literally hundreds and hundreds of pictures and videos right down on Company Street. The sunset from that bridge is something that you would not want to miss. So there are so many things that are so awesome about my little town in Wetumpka, Alabama. If you ever make it this way, please reach out and let me know. I'd love to take you to dinner at our favorite places and show you that Coosa River and the bridge and show you all around the Big Fish house and everything that has to do with Wetumpka. That is so awesome. All right, guys, we're going to hop off and take another break. We'll be back right here on TNCRadio.LIVE on the Southern Route.
TNCRadio.LIVE, your commercial driver navigation station.
I'm Hope Savara. Join us on TNCRadio.LIVE at 7 p.m. Eastern with Building Strong Minds with your host, Dr. Christopher Cortman.
As a professional driver, the engineers at Front Lane know that you remain focused on the road regardless of weather and traffic conditions. That's not always true of the drivers behind you. Every 9 minutes, another commercial vehicle is rear-ended by a driver failing to control their speed. And guess who gets the blame? When you have to brake quickly, Tailbone illuminates a series of bright red LED lights that allow the driver behind you to react up to 50% faster. Using amazing accelerometer technology and a battery that will last for years, Tailbone meets the standard set by the NHTSA and the FMCSA. Learn more by visiting www.frontlane.com/tailbone. That's www.frontlane.com/tailbone. Approved in all 50 states, it's Tailbone by Frontlane.
Industry movement Trucking Moves America Forward is telling the story of the industry. Our safety champions, the women of trucking, independent contractors, the next generation of truckers, and more. Help us promote the best of our industry. Share your story and what you love about trucking. Share images of a moment you're proud of. And join us on social media. Learn more at truckingmovesamerica.com.
Welcome back to the Southern Route. I am your host, Shannon Courier, here on TNCRadio.LIVE, closing out this week's segment. And I just wanted to share, since we've been talking about Alabama, some things about Alabama. If you are interested in visiting the South, coming to Alabama and checking things out, if you've never been here before, maybe there's some things you don't know about Alabama and you'd like to know, or maybe you're thinking about relocating, we would love to have you here. And so there's always these stereotypes that kind of go along with Alabama and a lot of the southern states. And so I wanted to just run through a few of those here on this last segment. These are just for fun. But one of the things a lot of people tend to think is that Sweet Home Alabama is our official state song, and it is not our official state song. I know we sing it here constantly, and if you are from Alabama, then you're going to sing it a lot. You're going to yell it at the top of your lungs. You're going to hear it played at ball games. You're going to hear it everywhere, but that is not actually our state song. Even though maybe it could be, it's not going to. Our state song is actually Alabama by John Coltrane, I believe, is our official state song. So, but Sweet Home Alabama, I'll tell you what, you're going to hear it literally everywhere. And if you are a Roll Tide fan, when you hear it played, you're going to hear the song sung Sweet Home Alabama. And as soon as it says Sweet Home Alabama, you're going to hear a whole group of people yell, Roll Tide, roll. So if you go to an Alabama game, you're going to hear the song, and that's what you're going to hear sung after Sweet Home Alabama. So that is a lot of fun. If you've never been to an Alabama football game, it is an experience. The tailgating is amazing. It is so much fun. You've never seen so much red and white in all of your life, but that's something that you don't want to miss. If you come down here for a visit, if people don't know and they kind of assume you're from here, the first question that you're going to get asked is, who are you for? Now, let me go ahead and give you the answer to that. Who are you for? The answer to that is University of Alabama. Okay. There are only two options when somebody says, who are you for? Are you for Auburn University, or are you for the University of Alabama? Do you say War Eagle? Sorry for those cuss words. Or do you say Roll Tide? Absolutely. The answer is the University of Alabama and Roll Tide. College football is a humongous deal here in the state of Alabama, and the Iron Bowl matchup, biggest event of the year by far. Do not plan anything on football dates, especially the Iron Bowl, because you will have nobody in attendance. Although my parents did get married on the Alabama-Tennessee game, let's see, 56 years ago. So apparently you can get married on the Alabama-Tennessee game, not on the Alabama-Auburn game. So, are fried green tomatoes a real thing? Absolutely. Fried green tomatoes are a real thing. It's also a movie. Wasn't filmed here in Alabama, but it was inspired by the novel. And the Irondale Cafe is the real Whistle Stop Cafe, and it's still in business outside the railroad tracks in Irondale, right outside of Birmingham. So there is a restaurant it is based on, and fried green tomatoes are a real thing. If you have never had fried green tomatoes, that may be another recipe I have to share at some point. But basically, take a green tomato, put some coating on it, some seasoning on it, fry it in a pan, you got a fried green tomato. I mentioned Coach's Corner last segment. They have excellent fried green tomatoes. So you can choose those as one of your sides when you come down here and visit my little town of Wetumpka. So, okay. Another thing that we have down here that if you're not from the South, you might not like is grits. If you are from the North, y'all probably eat oatmeal, or I can't even remember what the other things are called, the other white things that look like grits, but they're not grits. But we have grits. So every Alabama restaurant here has them. Most restaurants serve them, whether you're at a greasy spoon diner or whether you're at a fine dining establishment. One of the most popular dishes down here is shrimp and grits. I am not a fan. I love shrimp and I love grits. I have not liked them together. I've tried them at several restaurants, and I think it's the sauce that they use. Not a favorite of mine, but literally everybody loves shrimp and grits down here. And you can find them just, in a bowl, or you can find them at all of the fancy restaurants around here as well. So if you come down here, give shrimp and grits a try. You will probably love them. I would recommend trying them, even though they aren't my favorite. Everybody down here is going to say sir and ma'am. Yes, sir. Yes, ma'am. No, sir. No, ma'am. I do it as well, whether you are older than me, whether you are younger than me, whether you are a family member, whether you are somebody I'm just meeting for the first time. I may say yes, ma'am, no, ma'am, yes, sir, no, sir. That is just part of who we are. That is not something derogatory. It's just a sign of respect. It's not necessarily a sign of age, but a sign of respect. And I have women that I know that aren't from the South necessarily, and they'll say, "Don't call me ma'am." And it just comes out. I cannot help it. It just comes out. So my apologies if I offend you by saying yes, sir, no, sir, or yes, ma'am, no, ma'am. That is definitely never the intention. We are just trying to be respectful down here. If you are not used to being in the South, when you come down here, you are going to experience what real humidity feels like. Most of the time, levels are above 80% humidity. So when it is hot in the summer down here, it is hot. You can literally feels like you can cut the air outside. It is so thick. It's so heavy. You're going to sweat. You may as well not even worry about doing your hair because it's not going to stay done, or it's going to get really sticky because it's so wet outside. Now, spring and fall, those are the perfect. Fall is my favorite. We have very mild winters. So if you're not a winter fan, which I am not, I don't particularly like to be cold. We have very mild winters, but super hot summers. And summer seems to last forever. I swear it starts in April, and it could be hot all the way through Christmas. We just don't know what it's going to be like around here. Something else, just in case you didn't know, and my son has a friend who actually thought Forrest Gump was a real person, but Forrest Gump is not a real person. None of the movie was filmed in Alabama, even though a lot of the story, takes place in this state. Greenbow, the town, does not exist. It's not a real person, not a real place. That person was not involved in any of the history in Alabama. Just in case you did not know that already, Forrest Gump was not a real person. You always see Hollywood, put a character in that's supposed to be from Alabama. Most of the time, it's not accurate. So we'll just leave that at that. Down here, beach life and lake life. That's what I'll tell you. Orange Beach, Gulf Shores has the most beautiful beaches you have ever seen. White Sands beaches. My favorite is Orange Beach. I think I've mentioned before, my favorite place at Orange Beach is Floribama. It sits right on the sand, and they've got the best drinks and the best fried foods and great music and lights, and it's just the perfect location to relax and enjoy. And then Lake Martin is my other happy place. That's where my aunt and my parents live. They have houses on Lake Martin, and we spend a lot of time there as well, riding the boat, going down to Chimney Rock. That is a big rock that juts out of the water, and it's, I don't know, 40 or 50 feet high in the air, and people jump off of it. We used to do that growing up. It's just been a part of my life ever since I was little. So Lake Martin, you're going to want to check it out. It's a beautiful, one of the largest lakes as well, very clean. If you want to play some golf, Alabama, golfing nirvana, I tell you. We are the home of the Robert Trent Jones Golf Trail. So if you are a golf fan, this is the place to come. So also, if you hear anybody talk about, hey, I'm from LA, we're talking about Lower Alabama. So come on down and visit LA. We've got lots of fun stuff to show you. Guys, I am out of time. Thank you for indulging me this week and letting me just share some things that have been on my mind and on my heart. I hope you have a fantastic week. Go shake a hand, say hello to somebody, share a smile, and reach out to somebody you haven't talked to in a while. We'll talk to you next week here on the Southern Route on TNCRadio.LIVE.
Don't forget, you can hear all of our TNC Radio primetime shows again on our podcasts. Just go to tncradio.live/podcasts or search for TNCRadio.live wherever you listen to podcasts.
Do you have the TNCRadio.live app? It's free and easy to download. Just go to app.tncradio.live, Google Play, or the App Store. Get access to live streaming radio developed by drivers for drivers. Download the TNCRadio.live app today.